All right, senior home business family, how you guys doing today? It's Wednesday. You know what that is. That means it's the live show with Brittany and Matt. Brittany right now is in Missouri. Brittany, you're in your Missouri office, Missouri home, Missouri territory. It's exciting to hear all the stories about your business expansion throughout the years. And of course, I'm sitting in my office, guys, in the Central Valley of California. So when you guys hear me talk about California, you think of two things. My accent. I'm not originally from California. I'm actually originally from Virginia. I've been here 24 years, but I still sound like I'm in the South. And I'm getting ready to go visit my parents in September, Brittany. So it's going to be worse when I get back October, November, December. I'll be going, y'all, what's up? I mean, I was thinking it that bad, but I'll be changing something. I guarantee it's inevitable when you get back in that atmosphere and hang around different people like that. So today we're talking about the dark side of senior living. So that's why you click. That's why you want to watch this video. So we'll get right to it. But before we do, if you want to know more about what we do, we come on the show every Wednesday. We have 2 or 3 videos that are dropped every single week. We have shorts that are kicked out there. We got a podcast, all that stuff. But man, it's just, we love this business and it's so exhilarating. It's so fun to be able to help a senior at no cost, no obligation, Brittany. And I just want more and more people out there to see and catch this vision, because sometimes I get asked a question, because I talk to a lot of people, Brittany, with my consultations, and they go, is this business saturated? I mean, come on, there's too many out there. My question to you would be, audience, how many senior placement agents do you know? Did you even know this business existed before you landed on this channel? You probably didn't. So it's not saturated. I got some math behind it. I won't bore you with it today. But if you want to know more information, just click the links down below. There's all kinds of stuff, everything from a $30 3-day recorded webinar to a consultation call with me to whatever else down there, Brittany. But let's get into it, Brittany. We're talking today about the dark side. And it's just in any business, guys, in any walk of life, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. What we are not saying today, just to let you know, that senior living communities are bad. So senior living communities, those of you who watch us out there, we love and appreciate you. Brittany and I have a 3-step qualification process that we take these communities through. If you want to know more about that, Brittany, they should sign up for the Senior Placement Institute. If they don't know more about that, then they'll know exactly how to do all that. But there's some outstanding communities out there. There's communities I wouldn't even think twice of putting my mom or dad in there, or myself later on in life. God forbid, I'm 56, but Brittany, it seems like time is just flying. I'll be 86 tomorrow, seems like, but you never know. And so, but then again, in this industry, like I said earlier, like anything in life, there are some bad ones. There's some ones that I would never have my mom or dad go to. I would never encourage anyone to go to. And that's one of our philosophies. And Brittany, I know you adhere to this. Like, we have a personal conviction that we would encourage any family to go to a community that we wouldn't have our own mom or dad go to. And that's just the heart of the business. So let's get into it. The dark side of senior living, what families aren't told, right? And we're going to get through 5 of these things, 5 points, and then some sub points underneath. But Brittany, number 1 is not all senior living communities are created equal. What do you mean? They're all the same, right? They all have a building, rooms, care, food, caregivers, executive director, marketing directors. They're all the same, right?
No, a lot of them, they say like assisted living, they say they're assisted living, memory care, they're memory care, independent living, they're independent living. There's a lot of variations in them. And I think a lot of it, I think we'll talk about today too, is definitely like the care, what they can provide, what they can't provide. There's just a lot of different things. Even some states have different licensing. But again, if you drive down the street or you get on Google or you look things up on your own, they all say assisted living. They all say retirement community, independent living, memory care, whatever that is. But no, I think there's a lot of ways they are different. And, over time and things change, even with management companies, name changes. So I don't believe, I know that, you can even ask communities, how are you different? And a lot of times they can answer that question really well, but there's a lot of differences between each building. But you will hear the same things: dining room, pool, 3 meals a day, caregivers, like you said, but there's just way more deep than that.
Absolutely. I mean, I put on here, some are showroom ready during the tour, but change drastically after move in. I personally have seen that in my own walks of life as a marketing director in the community I work for. Great people, but things did change. And I've also seen that as a senior placement agent through the years. Another thing, Brittany, so talking about the dark side, that's why I got my monitors off. behind me, the dark side. No, that's pretty lame, huh? So summer showroom ready, right? You walk in and they got the lights and the could be the beautiful couch, beautiful fountain, beautiful whatever. And you just walk in going, man, it's really a nice place. And we've talked about many times on this channel how marketing directors, communities put their best foot forward, which, I mean, come on, everybody does that. We appreciate that, love that. But as a family, if you're looking to have your mom and dad go there, or as a senior placement agent, you're looking to vet this community, it goes deeper than the aesthetics. It goes deeper than just the lights and the scenery and, what you see when you walk in. Because what we used to do at the old community, and again, it wasn't a bad community, but I didn't like this piece. I get it, I guess, in theory, but I didn't like how we staged the 3-ring circus when we walked in, right? When the family would walk into the community, they would go, oh my gosh, look at that. They got a little coffee thing going over there. They got a little mini concert. They got some games over there. And they would stage this kind of thing because the tour, they want the family to be impressed, right? And I get it. I mean, we all want people to be impressed. It's just kind of you only get one shot at a good first impression, but you want reality. And so as a family or as a senior placement agent, you need to understand that it's beyond the showroom, beyond the bells and whistles, and what happens, what occurs after the move in. And Brittany, you can hit on this, but I see quite a bit the staffing levels vary wildly between shifts, especially at night and on weekends. What's your viewpoint?
Agreed. Biggest complaint from families that I get at communities when we get the feedback from our move-ins is this. It's staffing levels, it's response time, especially like you said, at nights, on the weekends, holidays. So things like this that families need to know, and then displacement agents need to be able to guide families is like when to move in, asking the right questions on what does their staffing look like. When I made the comment of how are they different, we have some communities that do an amazing job and their selling point is they're under 5 minutes no matter what. And they track those things. Some communities would not be able to answer the question on how fast is your response time, where others would. So this is really important. This is where care falls through. This is where seniors are frustrated. Their families are frustrated. This is when the families are getting phone calls at midnight because the loved one needs to go to the restroom and it's been so long, waiting for a call light and things. That's usually because of staffing. So this varies a lot, and some communities do a really good job at it. But I think more than not, a lot of them do struggle on the weekends, holidays, and nights for sure.
Yeah, that previous community I used to work for, and again, guys, I want to be very clear. I love the community, love the people. But when I worked there, I was shocked one day because I was outside sales, Brittany. I was not in the building very much throughout the week, a couple meetings during the week and then all day Saturday. But I came privy of information, what was going on in the evening. And it was only for a short stint, but hey, it was a couple months, that in the evening for the assisted living community and the memory care, we had one caregiver, one. And I'm doing the math in my head. And I'm like, okay, I know how many residents are in assisted living. I know how many are over in memory care. Memory care was not that big at the time. It was like 14, 15 individuals. But still, it's like, how does one caregiver do all of that? I mean, it's impossible. It's an impossible task for the caregiver. And caregivers, you're out there. If you're listening to this, you should never be in a situation like that. That you're being set up for failure. No, you're being set up possibly to be the hero. But no one person can handle all of assisted living. And whether it's 14, 15 people in memory care or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that means during memory care time, that caregiver had to go to the assisted living and do her rounds, and no one was in the memory care unit. Now, they can say, well, they're all asleep. Well, we all know. I mean, come on. People get up. There's various things that happen. So you need, as a family or a senior placement agent too, you need to understand, ask the right questions. What goes on in the evening, in the weekends? Matter of fact, you might not be able to do a tour at night. I don't know any community that would do a tour at 10 o'clock at night. Maybe they're out there. I don't know anyone that would do that. But you definitely can go on the weekend. And I would do that. I would just pop by. I wouldn't even schedule a tour, because you schedule a tour, it's going to be the stage event, right? If you go just pop by and want information, you're going to see firsthand of what goes on in that community. So not all communities are the same. And this is a hard pill to swallow for some, right? I give you an example of going to McDonald's and ordering a Big Mac. All the Big Macs should be the same because they use the same recipe and the same kind of bread and all that stuff, same sauce. But assisted living communities, that is not true. Number two, Brittany, the cost is more than just financial. And I got 3 points underneath this, Brittany, is that the emotional guilt from family members, especially adult children who feel like they gave up, that is an expensive thing to handle. I mean, you really feel, and I know you encountered this quite a bit too, but there's a lot of families that just feel guilty that mom or dad had to go. And it wasn't the family's fault. Work, family, that their own kids playing soccer, a lot of different demands of life that are on them, that they just can't provide the care, adequate care for their loved one. However, there's not that, emotion that escapes them sometimes. And I think that's the important thing of what we do as senior placement agents, is to be able to walk through this process with the family. And when you receive that call, that's the start of the process. And then you go through the process. But even after mom moves in, Brittany, talk about the importance of spending time with the family. And I don't mean going to the park and going to a basketball game, but I mean, you want to contact these families and have some follow-up. Is that right?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, you want to let them know through the whole process they're not alone. This is not a singular event where it's just this family, and try to help relieve some of the guilt and look at the positives of the transition. And that does mean after move in as well, making sure that, everything's going well, and how can we help the family get more transitioned and settled. And it's a transition for everyone, not even just the senior. They're our priority and that's what we serve, but the family comes with it as well. Like you mentioned, if they just can't do it any longer. I get this comment a lot. Nobody was born to know how to be a caregiver. A lot of the families have never cared for a loved one or cared for another human in that regard, besides maybe children. So it's a whole other level that a lot of us don't have experience in unless you have the experience in. And it's a hard, really guilty thing to do. I mean, they feel a lot of guilt from it. So yeah, the follow-up's huge. And I think it also just gives them peace, and also sometimes just having a conversation that, you walk them through that this was the right move and this is why, looking at all the positives. I think us in general as humans, we focus on negative, and with all the guilt in this situation, a lot of families focus on the negative.
Yeah, definitely. And I got down here too, seniors grieving the loss of independence more than families expect. I think that happens a lot more. I think seniors, in my experience with seniors, they don't want to, convey all what they're feeling, right? And my mom is the queen of that. My mom will tell you she's perfectly fine, even though been a little longer now, maybe 9-10 months ago, she had a heart attack. And then after the heart attack, I mean, shortly thereafter, she's like perfectly fine. Her back's hurting, but she's perfectly fine. And there's a lot of seniors that are in independent communities, not needing much care, but then AL memory care, that they grieve the loss of independence. I mean, I know I would. I never want to give up my independence, but that's life, right? I mean, there's a start, a beginning, and there's an end. And so, and somewhere along the line, you're going to need to be dependent upon other people. But it is a very traumatic experience for seniors. And if they're not in a vibrant community, Brittany, they can go through a kind of a season of loss, right? Not only do they feel like they lost their family, even though they come and visit on occasion, but they feel like, man, this community is not doing anything for me. I got no friends here. They're not really active. There's not the care that I need. I mean, they kind of pop by every so often, but I don't feel like I'm getting the attention that I need. And so that sense of loss just kind of mounts, right?
Yeah. And then when they're grieving the loss of their independence, it also, like we talked about, goes in the family. That makes the guilt so much worse. If they are not in the right community and not thriving, and there's always a transition period, they could even so far to go to decline. And that is going to make the whole situation just very negative, and a lot of grief on the family if they are not getting to where they need to go in the right community.
Yeah. And then the final thing about the financial thing is the hidden costs. There's a lot of hidden costs that communities don't convey up front, right? Could be some personal care, you're in need of certain items, and that your family or loved one got to provide some of those personal items, right? Could be mid-management, a lot of different, I just put those two up there. There's a lot of different things that I think it surprises families after signing, because there's a lot of communication that, hey, once you pay the $6,000 a month or whatever the fee may be with rent and care, mom is completely taken care of, right? Because the thing to hit on most is it's okay, provides the cable. You'll never never have to pay for a cable bill, a phone bill. You'll never have to pay for food. All these different things you don't have to pay for, electricity. It's all included. So if you hear that on all the time during conversation, it's all included, all included. I can see where families kind of get surprised when they need to provide certain things. So have you ever had any families that was a little bit shocked they had to provide certain things?
Yeah, I do. I mean, a lot of them say we're all inclusive. Like you mentioned, everything's included. Another big shocking point too, which is placement agents, that's our job to explain this, is the level of care model. A lot of families don't they've never done this before, so it's not something that you would just naturally know, but it is hard to see the future. So they are not aware of what that care level could get to. I have some communities that charge up to $4,000 extra a month as your care changes. So it might be something that they quote the family, let's just say easy number, $5,000 a month when their loved one moves in based on their care needs, but they're not aware of how much it can jump over the years. That's the biggest the hidden cost that I see families not really knowing to ask the right questions. And how do we know what the cap is? Like if we're trying to budget for the next 5 years, how much can we budget for? Also things like transportation, they'll say transportation's included. That might only be for 10 miles, Tuesdays and Thursdays for certain doctor's appointments. A big thing, it's another quick example of if you are on dialysis and have to have transportation 3 days a week. I've had families here, well, transportation's included, not realizing that does not mean to the scope of their loved one's needs. So, yeah, and I think if this is something like as what we do as placement agents, it's really important to know all these things so we can educate the families so they aren't going into this alone and really know the full scope, especially of how high those care costs can be. That can completely change somebody's ability to stay in a community.
Yeah, and that's the importance of being in relationship or identifying a quality seasoned senior placement agent, someone that's really knows the market, knows the industry, knows the process, all those different kinds of things. Because to your point, Brittany, they can reveal those things to the family. Hopefully all senior placement agents are like this. I don't know all of them, obviously, but hopefully they're transparent, they're honest about the process and not just trying to get a move in. But today, guys, we are talking about the dark side of senior living. And it is, again, not a bad thing to have your mom or dad go into an assisted living or memory care or independent. But like I said earlier, there is a dark side, right? And so if you are finding value in this, we'd ask that you would subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and that you would join us each and every Wednesday when we talk about these different things. So number 3, Brittany, is staff turnover can affect the quality of care overnight. We alluded to that earlier about, the example I gave of one caregiver for both sides of the community, but the turnover in and of itself, like you could have a really good caregiver, super personable. The senior is super comfortable with them. And then that caregiver, no fault to him or her, but they go on to something else, right? Because caregiving, usually, for the most part, there's exceptions, it's kind of a starting point in life. That's the starting point, but they usually have aspirations to be an LVN or going to something else, right? And so when that person leaves, it can have a negative effect on the senior.
Definitely. I think it even goes as far as like leadership. If leadership changes at the community, everything trickles down. So if you have a really good executive director, really good nursing manager that's been there for several years even and has really had the stability of the community, if they decide to move on, it also definitely really can affect the care. You probably think, well, why they're not the ones giving the baths, not the one giving the meds, but they are the glue to the community. And it really does trickle down from that head person all the way down to the hourly caregivers.
Yeah, a new executive director can be a mover and a shaker. Great things could happen, and they obviously could go down, right? And they get a new executive director, and we talked about this many times on this channel. They're kind of like football coaches, right? A football coach, you get a series of losses week after week. Eventually your job is on the line. Same with executive directors. So if they see the occupancy rate going in decline, the census going down, they kind of go, hey, it's time to make a change. And that change could be for the better or it could be more of the same. So I would encourage families out there, when you speak to the community, the marketing director, and you're showcasing the community, giving a tour, you want to speak to other leaders as well. And what happened with this? Whoa! You see that? It just went
Yeah.
dark. I think
Yeah.
it's something about the title, The Dark Side. This happened to us when we were offline talking about different things that just kind of went dark. So I don't know what StreamYard's doing here, but it just went. But a new executive director can kind of, make the place better or make the place not as good. But it's important as families that you talk to them, get to know. We talked about the caregivers leaving. Number 4, family involvement drops off, and so does advocacy. I hate this piece, but it's just life, right? It's I think a lot of families have great aspirations of seeing mom or dad 3-4 times a week, and then it trickles down to 2 times a week. Then it's once every 2 weeks. Then it's once every quarter or something like that. Not all families do this. I get it, but it's just life, and it's just what the senior goes through during this time. So, as we got that, I think after the move-in, visits get less frequent. And the important thing is seniors notice. They notice this. And Brittany, how do you think, not only how the seniors feel, how do you think this negatively impacts them?
I think kind of goes back to like they're already losing so much in their mind. They're losing their independence sometimes, their vehicles, there's so much change. And then I think when families decide, or it just happens, life happens, like you said. Sometimes the families sit back for a second and take a breather. If they were the caregiver for several months or several years, they needed that space. Many reasons why families do it, but I think it just affects, in the seniors see it as another loss, and it just kind of sits on top of everything else that they think they're losing. And I think it really creates a negative impact on the seniors. And I also think it hurts their transition to senior living. They kind of shut down. They're already shutting down. Maybe they're staying in their rooms a lot more often. If they're not having that family encouragement and they feel like they're losing them as well, to an extent, I think it just really doesn't help them thrive. But very common. We see it all the time. Thankfully, I work with a lot of families that I think the opposite happens. They're there every day, all day. So I get both sides of the spectrum, but very common. But I do think a lot of, and then there's no fault to the caregiver, not that we're, saying families aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I do think a lot of it, I see families waiting so long to place their loved ones into assisted living, and they're burnt out. They have caregiver burnout.
Yeah. Let me give you a little pro tip on this, Brittany. You know this, but it's the truth. It might be wrong, right, or indifferent, but it is true. Typically, families who visit often get better care for their loved ones. It's just being around. That's part of the being an advocate for a senior. I mean, as you're the son or the related in some way or a friend, you stopping by on a regular basis, people will notice. They'll notice that you're there. You have to sign in and all that. Make sure it's accountable that you're on. You're in the community, but they know you're there, and so there's small things that may occur throughout the week that if you're there on a regular basis, that mom or dad might be able to share with you, and it might not be anything major. It just might be something minor that you can actually get corrected early enough, right? And not let this thing prolong, because let's say you get there and you've noticed that the care is kind of slipping. They've lost some caregivers. There's that turnover, especially like during COVID, right? There's major turnover, and it still happens in this industry. So if you notice that mom is not being cared for like you would want her to be cared for, it just might be a simple conversation. It might be a complete oversight. It might not be malicious. It might not be their intent. It just might be something that they just overlooked. And it happens like with scheduling changes, when one caregiver is going home and the other one's coming in, and they got the same schedule and they're, serving the same rooms and seniors, and there's an overlap. And, caregiver B thought caregiver A had already serviced apartment 8 and she didn't. And so she moves on to 9 and mom didn't get seen that day, right? This might be something small. So, don't, be alarmed that just because there's a mistake or an oversight that the senior living community is bad. It just might be a simple correction, right? So you want that, but I would encourage you to visit as much as you can. I would encourage the senior placement agents out there to encourage your families to visit as much as you can. It's just, you're seen. And the seniors sometimes are not seen, depending on their condition. If they're not ambulatory, obviously they're not moving around, throughout the building and involved in activities and all different things. They're highly dependent upon someone to come to their apartment or their room to care for them. So you want to make sure that they are seen, and you get a sort of report, not an official report. Don't be going asking the executive director to fill out some daily report of the care and all that. But there will be records. When did mom receive her medication? How often was she seen that day? At what time, what services were provided? All that should be documented. If it's not documented, that is a bad thing for the community. They have medical records. They have a log of each of these residents. I've seen it. They got to check it off. And so doesn't mean it's done. It just means it's recorded. However, if you're going there on a frequent basis, you'll kind of get the idea and know whether it's being done or not. So try it if you can, on the way home from work, to stop by. It might just be a 30-minute visit. It doesn't have to be an all-day thing. If they have great grandkids, bring them by on the weekend. That just lightens up the seniors' personality, puts a big smile on their face. And not only your loved one, but man, I've seen families do that, Brittany, and the other seniors just light up too. They enjoy that. They enjoy family, because a lot of these seniors they're missing that piece, right? And especially if their loved ones don't come as often or not at all. Sometimes families absent, no longer on the scene, and it's just them. And so they love any kind of interaction with other little kids, pets. If the community allows pets or something like that, that'd be a huge thing that I would encourage you to do. So the fifth one, Brittany, is your loved one might not speak up even when something's wrong. And there's a couple of different reasons, and I'll go. Here's the first one, is that there is, and this is the most common one I've heard, is there's a fear of retaliation that keeps seniors silent about bad care or mistreatment. I have actually had seniors on given a haircut like me, to be bald, and the loved ones did not want them bald. And the community did this because it was easier to give them a bath, and it was just easier to wash their head without hair. Didn't get the permission. That's something small, but it's still, it impacted negatively the family. I've had all the way to the other extreme where a resident was completely physically abused. And I saw pictures of it, of their face being bruised, arms being bruised, and met with the family and went through all this. And, don't be misled. And I'm not saying they're misleading you, but it could be. If you see a bunch of security cameras all around the community, that's great. That should bring you some peace of mind. My experience with a couple of them, it's only a couple, again, not a whole lot, guys, but a couple, and that's why you want to stay away from the ones that are not up to par, is that whenever a situation like the resident being abused, for some reason the cameras weren't working during that time. Didn't catch it, couldn't find it. I totally get it. It's a huge liability, huge potential lawsuit for the senior living community if they would have revealed the tape. However, if you're not going to reveal the footage of the tape and you're promoting you have security cameras, stop promoting you have security cameras, because that's only an internal kind of thing. I'm a big proponent, Brittany, and I don't know if it's possible, especially with privacy issues and things like that, but I love the fact that more security cameras are there. I would find comfort to know that a security camera is in the room where my mom would be. Now, not in the bathroom, not in the private areas in terms of where they're getting dressed. And I know that's part of the bedroom probably. But I think if you had something like that, it would cause the caregivers to really be careful. Like they would treat your mom or dad as though you were there in the room. And again, the frequency of visits from the family, your loved one's going to be treated just a little bit different because you're there. And I get it. Caregivers have a bad day. Caregivers get frustrated. I get seniors can have an attitude. They can lash out. There's all kinds of things. However, it does not need to get to the place of that elder being abused.
Not at all. I think we even did a topic on the cameras. It's really interesting. Even the families can install in many states cameras in the communities and in their rooms. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And then, going through this, cognitive decline makes it harder for families to get the full story, obviously, and staff may dismiss concerns as confusion or normal aging, delaying real action. It's I had this happen just with my wife. Now, she's not in a senior living community, thank God. She's with me and she's healthy as best she can. But many of you know out there, she broke her back about 2.5 years ago. And we had a doctor visit through the surgeon's office 2 or 3 months ago. And they're going through all these different x-rays. And because she's experiencing some pain, she's going through all kinds of different things now to get that corrected. However, at the time we're looking at this x-ray, and this lady, it wasn't the surgeon, but this lady in his office, she was like, yeah, that's just normal aging. And I'm like, that made zero sense to me, because I looked at her, I said, if that's normal aging, what does my back look like? I played football, got destroyed as a high school quarterback on my back, ate dirt, ate grass, got bloody. I mean, my back should be terrible if it's normal aging. If it's 53, that's the way your back should look. My back should be, I should be hunched over all the time. And she didn't have an answer for that. But it was just getting to the point of just kind of dismissing it. And I think it's just normal for communities to have that kind of discussion, right? It's not meeting the need of the family and not seeing their concerns. It's just normal aging kind of deal. So you don't want real action to be delayed by excuses or confusion or something like that. So that's why it's so important, you guys, to fully understand which communities are out there that your loved ones should be, right? And these are things that you're not told. And if you're not told, you've got to do your due diligence and find out. And how you can find out, Brittany, if I was in Missouri or Texas, I'd be contacting you. That's how you could find out that information and not have an excuse that I wasn't told. Do your due diligence and know the background of this senior living community. When did it start? Who's the leader? There's a series of questions you should go through to vet that community. If you don't want to do the time or don't have the time, get someone like Brittany, get someone that's really seasoned in the area and say, hey, please help me. Let me know. Where would you have your mom go? And she'll be very honest and tell you that.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's important as, senior placement agents that we know all of these things so we can make sure that we are telling the families the right things and being transparent and just knowledgeable. The last thing that we want to do, and I know me and Matt live by this again, is place somebody in a community we would not place our loved ones. And that's our motto, and our students, same thing. That's what we uphold in senior home business, and it's really important. So all this stuff is really important to the senior safety, to the family's mentality, but seniors number one.
Absolutely. But guys, we hopefully enjoyed this conversation today in this video. I know it's kind of like, a little bit lower key than usual, but we just want to bring you the facts. We want to bring you great information about senior living and tell you everything about it, right? We love the industry. We love a lot of the communities. We love seniors. We love the whole process. We just, live, eat, sleep this business. We love it. But with anything, like I said earlier, there's going to be some quirks. There's going to be some disappointment. There's going to be some concerns or some mistakes or some oversight and things like that. You can't prevent all of it, but if you do your due diligence and have the right senior placement agent at your side, that won't cost you a dime. They make their money from the community, so they will not cost you a dime, right? We just had a conversation with an attorney yesterday, and the consultation, it wasn't my attorney, it was about a different thing. I'm not being sued or anything like that. It's about my wife and doing different things. And it was $150 for 30 minutes. All right. So you're not going to get any of that. So if you call Brittany, one of our senior placement agents, it's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. And this information is at your disposal. All you have to do is ask. So until next time, we really appreciate you. God bless.